And welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Week number 4 of the Eagles offseason is getting close to the end here. We do have some news in Eagle land, but plenty of great topics to talk about this morning. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, my friend?
Doing well. My usual technical issues, but other than that, all is well. And Kevin Patulo is out, so that's
yeah, we got to talk. Let's start right there, John. The great Kevin Patulo that was so beloved here in Philadelphia is now scraping the egg off the side of his house as he packages up to leave for Miami. Your thoughts on Kevin Patulo getting hired to Miami to be their pass game coordinator?
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Passing game coordinator, senior offensive assistant role somewhere. Gets it down in Miami, which is good for Kevin because he's a big golfer. Stalder's a tremendous golfer, could be a future professional. So obviously Florida helps you in that way. Plus he went to high school down there. He went to high school right near Miami, where in fact he went to high school in the same town that the Dolphins' old training facility, which was in Davie, Florida, was. They have a brand new one, which is gorgeous, by the way, right next to the stadium in Miami Heights. But yeah, nice fit for him. Nice landing spot. Goes into a situation where Jeff Hafley is a first-time head coach, defensive-minded, so he will have a key role with Bobby Slowik, ironically, who interviewed for the Eagles offensive coordinator position as they try to rebuild that offense, likely with a new quarterback, whoever that might be. So they're in that situation where they have to find a quarterback. So that's never easy, but yeah, not the dumbest guy in the world, despite what you've been told by way too many. Was always going to happen. It was just a matter of where, and now we know where.
There you go. Kevin Patulo to Miami. We'll see if it works out. I think obviously you just mentioned it. The toughest thing there, John, is who the heck is their quarterback? I don't think it's going to be Tua anymore, and not a whole lot of options out there. Hey, I got Tanner McKee for a second for you, Miami.
Yeah,
take it or leave it, all right?
I think they're going to leave that. But,
yeah, I think so too.
There's quite a few. I mean, Derek Carr's talking about coming out of retirement. Kirk Cousins is going to be back on the market if he doesn't retire. Malik Willis is going to be a hot name. That's going to be the name that I think people connect immediately to Miami because Jeff Hafley was in Green Bay and he did a good job when he had to come in there. So I think that's the name you'll hear most. But there's more. I would say there's more competent options projected this offseason than most off seasons, at least early on. If you're looking for, obviously wouldn't be the long-term answer. The only one of that could be a long-term answer is potentially Willis if he can get him up to speed and he can be a starting quarterback. But that's a big if. But there's more competent options than there normally is. So that's gonna get a first round pick for Tanner people a little bit, I think.
There you go. We'll see what ends up happening with that. Kevin Patulo, congrats to him. He's hired. I told him, man. I said it at the start here. He's gonna have to scrape some of that, egg off his house when he sells that thing. Unfortunately, Philly fans have plastered the home, but good for Kevin Patulo. We'll see what he's able to do. John, what's left for the Eagles in terms of imperative stuff? Like stuff, I'm not talking free agency. I'm not talking the draft. That's obviously all stuff in the, in the future. But what's the imperative stuff? What coaches are left to fill out? It feels like we're almost there completely. What's the imperative stuff that the Eagles still have to do that could come at any day, if there's anything? I'm starting to feel like maybe they racked it all up. Maybe they finished it all up.
Not necessarily. Quarterbacks, number one. That obviously with Jalen Hurts, he won. And Sean Mannion's going to be working hand in hand. He's going to be the most important guy. But still, you can't. When you're running the whole offense, you can't work with the quarterbacks in every meeting day to day. So could be Scott Leffler still here, he's still under contract, but they have talked to some other people. So that indicates to me they want to go in a different direction, but sometimes you can't, and sometimes you can't get the guys you want. The name that popped up was Greg Olson, longtime quarterbacks coach, plenty of experience as an offensive coordinator, who used to coach Mannion in Seattle, which would make some sense. But he's in Las Vegas, and they just hired a new coach, and you got to wait to see what the new coach wants to do at that position. If he wants to keep him, you're SOL, and that's why you keep somebody like Leffler who's under contract. Is look, it stinks for those guys because they're in they're stuck in the middle and they can't do anything. And by the time if they are removed, it's so late in the process there aren't options. But I mean that's just part of the coaching industry. So that's what I think is going on there. And the rest of the coaching is pretty much done. You'll have some lower level guys that fans don't pay attention to much anyway. The safeties coach is still vacant after Christian Parker left and Joe Casper got promoted. So if they want to bring in a safeties coach, and not everybody has a safeties coach, not everybody breaks it down like that. So it's not like you have to do it. Tyler Yelk is a defensive assistant that, again, lower level, that's leaving for Nebraska. One of his ex-teammates is the defensive coordinator out there, so he's getting a better gig out there. So there's some lower level stuff. But for the most part, the main coaching pieces are in place except for quarterback. So it'll shift pretty quickly. And it has to shift anyway because the combine coming up at the end of the month. It'll shift pretty quickly to the personnel and answering those questions that we all have about where Howie Roseman is going to go with this roster.
Going to be interesting, John. I like the Olsen name because I think it's a nice difference from what they've done so far in terms of inexperience. I like the experience of Olsen. I mean, I look across the NFC East, I see that Giants staff. I'm like, boy, that's an experienced staff right there. I don't know if you can say the same about the Eagles staff. Well, in fact, I know you definitely can't say the same. Now, Nick obviously has pedigree. Vic Fangio has pedigree. I'm not saying it's all lack of experience, but the new offensive coaches are, 33, 35, 38, 43. They're not particularly long-time guys. So I would welcome Olsen. I think that would be a good move. But I don't know how much that plays into your thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I look, Mannion is going to be the most important, and then probably Grizzard. So you're talking about number 3, but you are talking about a guy who's running the quarterback meetings, the guy who's, working with the technique and fundamentals. So it is probably a little bit bigger this season because you're projected to do so many different things. And that'll require some different techniques and some different footwork. So it'll be good to have somebody, Sean Mannion is comfortable with. And, but again, it's not, when guys are under contract, it's not as simple as just saying we want them. That's what's taken so long. And once Las Vegas makes a decision, I think it'll either be Olsen coming here or Scott Leffler staying here.
We'll find out what ends up happening with the quarterback coach in Philly. Still a couple things there to clean up, and then you have the full offseason slate. What will the Eagles do? And then you start to get into personnel, which I think is a massive part of this equation. And maybe there's an expectation, John, that the personnel won't change that much. Everybody on offense is under contract. Where are you seeing the changes? There's not that. I mean, there is a couple free agents, but not to the level where you're like, whoa, it's not that many. I look at the offensive side, John, and I say, with this many coaching changes, and I brought this up yesterday, what personnel changes are coming for the Eagles? Now, we're going to do a nice long segment here when we get into this, but I just want to hear your kind of overall thoughts before we get specifically into each area of the offense, where I do think there's good conversation on every area. But are you expecting as big of personnel changes as you were, or as they've done with the coaching staff?
No, I don't. I don't think they're in a position to make those kind of changes. I do think Lane's going to be back. I do think Landon's going to be back. So you don't have much change on the offensive line. AJ, we talk about a lot. There's still the potential he's traded. If he's not, obviously you're not going to have a lot of movement at wide receiver. So the one position where you should, obviously the quarterback's not changing, the running back's not changing. The one position you should have multiple new bodies is tight end. I don't think Dallas Goedert will be back. I don't see that path. I'm not sure they would want Grant Calcaterra or Kylan Granson back. So you're going to have to add multiple tight ends via the draft. It's a deep draft from what everyone says from a tight end perspective, so that should help. I don't think they'll take a tight end in the first round, but I do think day two you might see one, and it's been a while since Dallas Goedert, since they've done that. But I think tight end is the one position where there's going to be some turnover. Other guys are big names under big contracts, and it's tough to move off them at this stage.
We're going to see. John, how does the tight end position, how does it change with this perceived or expected new offense? What kind of tight end are they looking for, do you think, that would work in the Mannion, which we don't really know what that looks like yet, but we're assuming it's going to look like a certain style. What tight end fits? What style of tight end? You don't have to go names or specific.
Well, everybody wants George Kittle, who can do everything. Everybody wants Tucker Kraft, who can do everything. Yeah, the key is getting a good player. That's number one. And then I think Sean McVay did it best this year. He had a bunch of good tight ends, so he used them. I think it depends on, and that's all the thing. You're going to see all these think pieces, whatever, and they're going to say the same shit they tell you every year. The under center, the motion, the play action. Look, Sean McVay showed you. He's the guy, everybody's trying to copy, not just the Eagles and Kyle Shanahan. And they shift. They shift all the time to their best players. They're going to utilize their best players. That's my hope. That should be everybody's hope to Sean Mannion. So to put him in these, I was thinking about it too. 90% of the time, you're right, Zander. You look at Green Bay and he's going to run a similar offense to what Green Bay ran. So go get Tucker Kraft and Musgrave and you'll be fine. But at the end position, but not always. And I think back to Jonathan Gannon. Like Gannon, when he came in here, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting," because he's going to run a lot of Mike Zimmer A-gap stuff. He was in Minnesota, and then he went to Indianapolis, and he was met with Matt Eberflus, and he'll probably mix it in with a bunch of cover two, old school cover two, and he did nothing of the sort. He got his opportunity, and he liked what Vic did, like everybody else, and built more of that style of defense. So all those people trying to pigeonhole Sean Mannion into something, you better hope they're wrong. Because if he's a good coach and everybody says he's a smart guy, and
the changes they've made been too big to just like, you know what I mean? Like that's where I was like, all right, maybe he does not go as far, but Stoutland's like everybody's gone. You know what I mean?
There are certain things like they're going to try to run more wide. Yes, they're going to try to run more. But what I keep saying is, and please, because I got a couple of comments yesterday, please listen to the entire comments. Don't take out one point. They're going to try to do all those things. But if Sean Mannion's as smart as people says, and they're not doing it well, he's going to shift like Sean McVay did last year with all his tight ends, and he's going to utilize what he has. That's what I think everybody should be hoping for. And then maybe you find maybe you're not full bore Kyle Shanahan, but you're in the, you're in the middle of the extremes of what they've been doing and what people want them to do. And maybe you're halfway there or 3/4 there, but you're still taking advantage of the strengths of what you have. That's the upside of Sean Mannion. Not always going to use the scheme by hell or high water. Like, why anybody would say that or want that is astonishing to me.
But you do agree that the perception right now is that, like, he's going to cut. You said it yesterday. Are they hiring a scheme? I don't like that,
Yeah, and everybody should say that. And if they're hiring scheme, it's going to fail. Period. I don't think they are. I think they're hiring a guy whose preference is that particular scheme, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's got to have a foundation.
Right. Kellen Moore's preference wasn't the Sirianni offense.
Exactly. Everybody's got a foundation. They should have a foundation. And if you're a head coach like Kellen Moore's in New Orleans, you can work to that foundation. You can work and try to get personnel to fit that. But on the way, you better take advantage of what you have, or you're not going to last to take advantage of it when you build up the personnel that you want to build up. So throw all those pieces in the trash. You heard them all. You read them all. Or just go back to Kellen Moore and read the same thing. Yeah, to me, the most interesting part is, and we got into this on the show during the season, mainly because of the Kirk Cousins clip that went viral, talking about the difference between reading coverage as a quarterback versus pure progression.
Right.
Now, did the Eagles go farther towards pure progression, which in theory would be the case in a Shanahan McVay offense, would be more pure progression? Are they going to go completely in that direction? That to me is far, far more interesting than you got to go under center. You gotta play action. That is far more interesting and far more important than that other stuff.
And do you think they're going to try and do that?
Yeah.
And you think that will work out or no? Any thought one way or the other, or more of a wait and see?
It's more of a wait and see, Well, to use that clip as an example, I don't know. Kirk was like 36 at the time, and he struggled with it, and maybe 35.
That's his skill set too, in a way.
Yeah. Well, you learn one way for 12 years, and now in his case, he's maybe experience kind of hurt him a little bit because he did it one way for so long. And then he's got to wake up and do it another way. But very cerebral quarterback, very smart quarterback, and he struggled with it. So,
will the Eagles hire a scheme? Did they hire a scheme, or will Sean Mannion be smart enough to not fall